Welcome. I'm George Latimer, and this is Hudson Valley Conversations, an opportunity to talk with elected officials in other parts of the Hudson Valley. For those of us here in Westchester County, a chance to learn a little bit more about our neighboring counties, some of the issues that we have in common, and some of the things that are differentiated. Today we have two guests with us who serve as members of the Dutchess County Legislature. And I'm joined today by the Minority Leader, Yvette Valdés Smith, and by Barrington Atkins, who's the Assistant Minority Leader. And Barrington, Yvette, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much for having us. So
tell us the macro picture. Tell us a little about Dutchess County. Most of us pass through Dutchess County when we go on the Taconic, when we have a reason to be in Poughkeepsie or in one of the other fine places. Got a lot of nice restaurants up there. Tell us about Dutchess County.
Well, we absolutely love Dutchess County. Not only do we represent Dutchess County, but we live there. We've chosen to raise our families there, build lives there. Dutchess County is comprised of about 20 towns, 8 villages, and actually Assistant Minority Leader Barrington Atkins and myself represent the 2 cities of Dutchess County. So Barrington Atkins represents the city of Poughkeepsie, and I represent the city of Beacon, as well as the town of Fishkill.
And Barrington, do you have all of the city of Poughkeepsie as part of your turf? Do you have anything outside of it, or does your district cover some but not all of the city?
So due to the redistricting, I'm now District 9, so I moved from 9 to 10. And the city of Poughkeepsie is cut into 3. So it's me, legislator Craig Brenly, and then Randy Johnson. So we all have a piece of the pie of city of Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, and that's not unusual. Here in Westchester County, we have 6 cities, and 4 of them are pretty significant size, and each of them have more than one representative in some way or fashion. Yvette, you mentioned you have the city of Beacon. Do you have the totality of the city of Beacon?
That's a great question. I actually don't. I represent part of the city of Beacon.
Okay.
It is a large city, as is Poughkeepsie. That's, again, why they're probably divided. I do have part of the city of Beacon and most of the town of Fishkill.
Okay. And overall, how many members in the legislature?
We have 25 members in the Dutchess County Legislature, but only 8 of them are Democrats.
All right, so 17 Republicans, 8 Democrats, and you have a county executive system form of government. I know that you have something we don't have, which is a separately elected county controller, Robin Lois.
Absolutely.
Are there any other countywide positions that are elected in your county?
Yes, there are. We have the county clerk, who runs the DMV and the like. And those elections are actually coming up this year in 2023, as so are ours. As our cycles are up as well.
You know, it's interesting when you go from county to county, the differences that exist. There are counties that have elected controllers. There are counties that have elected sheriffs. We have neither of those here in Westchester. You have an elected sheriff in your county?
We sure do. Yes, we do.
All right. And the sheriff is responsible for the police and the corrections function?
Yes.
Okay. So here in Westchester, you know, historically, it's been done in a fashion where the county executive appoints a head of corrections, a commissioner of the corrections department who runs our jail and other correctional facilities. We also have a head of our county police department of public safety. So every place is a little bit different in the way that they're structured. So Barrington, from your perspective, you live in the most urban part of the county. Are the concerns that you have representing your constituents different from those that you may find in the more suburban or rural parts of the county? And if so, what do you see as some of those issues? And Yvette, I'm going to ask you the same thing next.
Yes. So what I say all the time to my colleagues, but also to the whole of Dutchess County, City of Poughkeepsie is very unique. City of Poughkeepsie is #1 living under the poverty line, so our struggles are different. Very diverse community, but as you mentioned, we do have some difficulties that we're trying to work through as far as gun violence, as far as poverty, and mental health, and making sure that those needs are met by the county as a whole, but making sure they're met correctly. So.
And Yvette, how do you structure the kinds of issues that you represent in your district and how it compares to those in the county at large?
Absolutely. Well, like Barrington, mental health has been at the top of our minds for all of our constituents, especially post-pandemic. We're seeing a lot of issues too within our schools, and that's a similar thread across the board. I'm a former public school teacher and a mom of 2 young kids in the public system. We see that a lot with our youth. We're trying to make sure we have more youth programs in both of our districts, but something that is affecting all of our districts, and I believe the entire Hudson Valley, is the housing crisis. So we really are struggling with affordable housing throughout our county. But like Barrington said, some issues are a little bit different in Poughkeepsie than they are in Beacon. We've had a lot of people come into Beacon, and housing rates have really skyrocketed, forcing a lot of people to either sell their homes, unable to rent anymore in our city.
Right.
And we really need to look at solutions throughout our county to meet our housing crisis head on and deal with this as a county. Every single taxpayer deserves it, every single homeowner, every single renter, everybody deserves better. And we need to get a control on that issue. And I think that's something that affects all of our constituents.
I agree. In going back to mental health and making sure, so Dutchess County has amazing services, whether it's for mental health, whether it's for substance, but now we need to be in a place where we're able to look at demographics and apply interventions to demographics. If we have services that is offered for mental health, making sure that it's serving everyone, not just a certain population of people. So.
Well, it's interesting because the demand for housing that you're talking about has been something that's really accelerated here in Westchester County. We're that much closer to the city. And as people want to move out of the city and look for other options, we've become very desirable. And I think by extension, so have the other counties in the Hudson Valley. And that has people with greater wealth pursuing the available housing units that are there, which is what drives the cost up, the market. And we struggle with trying to make sure we have enough affordable housing. We do not have enough affordable housing. And then there's also the conflict of citing projects that make sense, that fit into the infrastructure of an area, whether they have the proper sewer, water, traffic issues, environmental impact. But the need is pretty profound. And of course, in our cities, Peekskill, Yonkers, Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, we have some real concerns, not dissimilar from Poughkeepsie and Beacon, I would expect, in the big scheme of things. Tell me a little bit about the tax structure. Most everybody complains about taxes, property taxes, sales taxes. What is the structure of taxation in Dutchess County?
Well, I believe it's extremely similar to Westchester, and every single person is feeling the pinch right now. As our Democratic caucus has, listened to concerns of all of our constituents, we actually proposed a sales tax decrease countywide, and we have also proposed raising the tax exemption for seniors and disabled. And this is a proposal we just put forth this past Monday, and it will be a local law dropped on our desks next month. So we are really trying to help each and every citizen in our county because everybody is really struggling right now.
Well, interesting, and I'm sure it's true if you represent urban districts, that the sales tax affects people regardless of their income. We don't levy income taxes, which is proportionate to how much revenue you have. But if I decide to buy a product of $100, or a person who is a lot less wealthy than I am has to buy the same product, we pay the same level of taxation. So I assume that's the genesis of you proposing to cut the sales tax.
Absolutely.
And just from a general standpoint, as you look at all of this, did your sales tax revenue perform very highly in the last year? Most governments have seemed to, whether it's the cost of inflation or whatever's happened out in the society, they've generated more money. So there's money there that can be, used to help give some tax relief.
Not only have we generated more money than expected, we just received an internal memo from leadership at the county, from the administration, saying that next year their guesstimate is that it will be even higher. So not only that, we also have this very large fund balance, which in a way acts, for those that might not know, acts almost like as a rainy day fund, like a slush fund that counties can have. But there's also guidance that we shouldn't have, that shouldn't be this huge balloon amount. So again, we thought as a caucus, let's put those dollars back into taxpayers' pockets and help out as much as we can right now.
Now, Barrington, you talked a little bit about some of the services that are needed. So tick off some of those priority issues. I think I heard mental health as being an issue that's a priority, certainly youth funding. Housing obviously is one of those social things. Go through some of the things that you see or hear about in your district that represent the county's role in being able to help lift up people who are poor or otherwise impacted in the society?
So I would refer to being as transparent as possible, but providing spaces where people can give feedback, and all people. When we talk about mental health, maybe, what was it, last year I had an event called Shut Up and Listen, where the community was able to come in and we called in providers to listen exactly what they needed as far as mental health resources. And it was very, very good turnout. Community side, but also nonprofit agencies that we contract. So in Dutchess County, we do a lot of the work when it comes to mental health. However, we do use a lot of agencies that are already in the community, and they're basically our contract agencies to do that work.
I believe that that was an incredibly important thing that you did, and the turnout was tremendous. And we actually continue to ask for public hearings on all different types of things in the county. Barrington actually just on the floor this Monday asked for another public hearing on the emergency housing facility that was going to be planned to be built in Poughkeepsie, and now they've rescinded that offer and that plan at 26 Oakley Street in Poughkeepsie. So it won't be happening there. But we believe as a caucus, to get out there in the community and really talk to our constituents and get their ideas and hear their concerns, we're here to listen. Really, that's our job, and then build legislation off of that. What do our communities really need?
And when you see these kinds of needs, Yvette, how did the county look at the ARPA funding that it received from the federal government? We all got different amounts. The difference in size between Westchester to Dutchess, we're a little over 5 times your size, so our numbers are pretty huge compared to yours. But how did you use the money, or have you used it to the greater extent in terms of ARPA? Because that's where we saw an infusion of money for which we could apply it to some of these problems that we had, food insecurity notably, and some things of that nature.
Some of the ARPA funds were applied to housing. We, as a caucus, fought very, very strongly and passionately against what the administration wanted to spend. They put $12.5 million towards Dutchess Stadium funding. So stadium funding for us, we did not believe that was a priority that we shared. That was not going to help your average family, working family, senior, veteran in our community. It just wasn't.
And that's the stadium that we see on 84 as we travel toward the Newburgh Beacon Bridge.
That's correct.
They have a minor league team that plays there, the Renegades, I guess it is. Or
Yes,
it is.
and,
Okay.
and they actually have brought in a Yankees affiliate
Oh, okay.
now.
All right.
However, going back to the fund balance, in our last budget, the Republican administration did push forth $25 million taken out of our fund balance and now into more upgrades at the stadium. So we voted no on that because, again, we didn't feel like that's a priority. We have all these other priorities that we're talking about right now, and that just isn't one.
Barrington, in terms of the ARPA funds, did you see some of it reaching the people that you felt were the most vulnerable, that needed the support?
I did. At one point, the funds were available for nonprofit agencies that had programming. We Learn, Play, Create grant for nonprofit organizations to apply that work directly with youth. And it was great to see that money going back into the community, especially for first-time nonprofit organizations that could apply up to $20,000 and to get their program off the ground, or the ones that had been running previously and just having that extra fund to do more programming. So there was a major benefit with the ARPA funding.
Let me switch gears, different topic, environment. We know that most of us are very focused on having to have a lesser environmental footprint in the day that we are concerned about climate crisis. What are some of the environmental priorities that face the county government and the things that you're doing about them?
Well, we're Hudson River towns, so the health of our river, the health of our ecosystem, our air and water quality are always top of mind for us. During that budget process, we proposed a climate smart coordinator for the county. We really felt that that position would be an individual who would be able to grab all of the data from around Dutchess County and be able to provide us really a map of what we're doing well, what we need to work on, and we unfortunately did not get that passed. But it is something we're going to continue to work on in our county. We have also been pushing for countywide composting, and there's, our priorities in our caucus seem to be a little bit different than the administration's.
That's always the tension in a democracy
Yes.
between what different points of view think. You know, I should extend an invitation to you, any of your colleagues. We established a composting model facility in our Grasslands campus over in Valhalla, not too far from here. It's called Compost Ed. And we've used that as a format to try to get some of the municipal governments, some of our towns, particularly the towns in the northern part of Westchester, that look a lot like the towns that are in the eastern part of your county. And they have some land, and they can be able to do a certain amount of composting on site, because separate from that, we have taken on a responsibility for food scrap recycling with the local governments. They collect it, and then we transport it. But of course, the further south you go in Westchester, the more you have highly dense populated areas, the Yonkers, Mount Vernons, even the small villages like Larchmont and Bronxville just don't have a lot of space to be able to do it in-house. So that's one of the things. We've converted our bus fleet from diesel to electric and electric hybrid. Is there any effort like that going on in Dutchess County right now with your mass transit?
We have asked for it over and over again, every single time that comes up in the budget, every single time that we're discussing public transit. We have asked for the electric fleet. They say it is beyond that they can't travel long enough distances. The technology is just not there. We do know that the technology is there. We know that well, and we've brought that to the table. But as of right now, the administration does not seem interested.
As you mentioned, we do bring it up every chance, especially when we get a resolution about purchasing a vehicle. We want to know if it's energy efficient. We want to know what is the long-term plan as far as saving our environment. As a legislator, we are not the experts at everything.
Of course.
So the goal is to work with grassroots organizations, work with people, listen to people that are doing the work, and bringing that back. But right now, as you mentioned, it's not happening.
Well, schedule an outing. We have one of our bus garages is also in our Valhalla complex, so you can see composting and you can see what we've done to convert buses. And you know, and I would argue that our hybrid electric buses we need for, and similar to you, when you get closer to the river, our topography has the steep slope. But when you get to the rest of the county, it's relatively flat, and we found that electric and electric hybrid buses work. But rather than say it, we can show it, and you know, bring some folks down, and we'll get your transportation people and our transportation people to talk on a level. The buses are more expensive, so we've gone to our federal representatives to get federal help, and we've had some largesse. On the other hand, what we've been able to say, and this would matter to both of you because of your urban settings, is that if we have hybrid electric and electric buses, we're not having that diesel exhaust that goes through the streets. And we have more of our public bus system in the urban centers. So kids who have asthma, children of color perhaps, who have that, they're getting a cleaner quality of air in the immediate reality of where they live, where we have public bus routes. And that's separate and distinct from buying less, you know, fossil fuel to run the system, because we're using electric to do it. Obviously, there's been quite a controversy over Holtec announcing that they're going to, or they're proposing to, put radioactive liquid into the Hudson River to take it off of the Indian Point situation. Even though Dutchess is above the point at which that goes into the water, I assume you've looked at that issue and you have some thoughts about it.
We have, and we have drafted a resolution that was actually entered today into our legislature to make sure that that does not happen. Holtec dumping water into our Hudson River would be a disaster for everyone, for all of New York State, whether you're on the river or not. So we believe our resolution will pass next month. We hope with full bipartisan support.
And we have seen bipartisan support here in Westchester. Our legislature just adopted a resolution. I have not talked to your county executive, but I have spoken to the county executives of Orange, Putnam, and Rockland counties, who are all in the other political party. But the four of us on this particular issue, we're on the same page. So hopefully, and this is really the power of those of us in the lower Hudson Valley, that we can, when we have agreement, that we can serve as a combined force together. We oftentimes, because I was in the state legislature, we deal with Long Island when they combine forces. They're a large part of the states, 3+ million people between Nassau and Suffolk. So Westchester alone is not as strong as when we're on the same page as Dutchess, Orange, Rockland, and Putnam. So, and it could be this resolution is one of those things.
Absolutely.
And
And
it
we
does
share
have-
so much in common here in the Hudson Valley.
Well, tourism we certainly share in common. And I know myself, when I would come to and from Albany, I'd make it a point to do the walkway across the Hudson. I'd make it a point to stop at the FDR site or the Valdés site. Been to the Vanderbilt Mansion, and had dinner down by the river in Poughkeepsie. And so there are a lot of really nice places. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit more about some of those places?
Well,
there
sure
are
you've
Westchester people that want to come to your county to have dinner or go to a site.
I'm sure you've been to the Dia in Beacon.
Yes, yep.
And our incredibly long and amazing Main Street, filled with art galleries, restaurants, bars, you name it. And there is a ton in Poughkeepsie as well.
Yeah, city of Poughkeepsie is very diverse. Amazing food. One restaurant that I eat all the time is Sylvia's Jamaican
Well, you haven't
restaurant.
gained a pound,
Yeah,
Barrington,
right.
so I don't really buy that. But go ahead.
But Sylvia's Jamaican restaurant is actually on Main Street, going towards the river, the waterfront. But you can walk down Main Street and find anything: Jamaican food, Spanish food, Indian food, Mexican food, and I think that's what makes City of Poughkeepsie diverse. It's a bunch of people coming together to serve the community, but
Right.
living together as a whole. So.
Right. Now, you're both on the Hudson line of the Metro North system, and we have both the Hudson line in Westchester County and the Harlem line, I guess it serves the eastern part of your county. What is the commutation realities like for your residents of Dutchess County, for those who go into the city, or perhaps even on the Harlem line come into White Plains to work? What is that experience like, and how much of a public policy concern is it for you?
Well, most of my constituents, a lot of them are commuters. So not only does train safety matter a lot, and this is something that our Congressman Pat Ryan has been working on, but the conditions of our stations have come up a lot for us. And that's something that the funding is not coming from the county. So we have Assemblyman Jonathan Jacobson has been working very closely on the budget at the state level and has asked for improvements for Beacon and for Poughkeepsie because those stations really need them. There are actually no bathrooms in the Beacon station at all.
We have bathrooms in the City of Poughkeepsie train station, but we definitely need some upgrades.
When you look at the county, given the fact that you both represent primarily urban areas, although if you have some Fishkill, you're getting outside the urban setting. And then, of course, you have, by our standards, rural. It may not be upstate New York standard of rural, but you have to the eastern part of the county less dense population along the Route 22 corridor and so forth. What are some of the issues that affect Dutchess residents outside of the river cities and the population centers, the Rhinebecks, Red Hooks over here? What are some of the issues that affect the rest of the county that you think deserve more attention, perhaps some different strategies?
One thing we have talked about for the past couple of years is increasing public transit and even making it free or reduced price. So the eastern part of our county really lacks transportation. So we have people really struggling to be able to get to doctor's appointments. So actually that brings up the point that we have actually talked about more mobile units as far as medical mobile units. But we still, even on that side of our county, have a housing crisis. So even people throughout our county have struggled with that as well.
And when you speak about transportation, so as mentioned, I represent City of Poughkeepsie. We are the only school district in Dutchess County that doesn't have busing. Right. So our students in the City of Poughkeepsie, they take the public bus transit to school, and the effects that has on absenteeism is really high. So as a county, finding a way in which that we can help provide those services or solution or a plan. So this has been an ongoing issue for a very long time.
Just as we begin to wrap up the conversation, let me give you the magic wand. You can do whatever you want. Specify a couple of issues that you'd like to see resolved in a specific way that you think would be really helpful in Dutchess County. Barrington, I'll go with you first, and Yvette, then to you.
So if I had to take the magic wand, I'm a social worker. I'm a New York State licensed social worker. So I'm thinking about people first whenever I'm thinking about policy resolutions. But the biggest thing that's sitting with me is mental health, especially for our youth. We don't have any youth mental health beds here in Dutchess County. So what happens is if a student or a young person is hospitalized, they have to wait in an emergency room in Dutchess for a bed to be available and shipped to another location. So really working on getting those youth mental health beds or crisis beds immediately, because COVID has really done a lot on our young people, and just making sure that they have that adequate service in Dutchess County.
And Yvette,
Yes.
you get the same magic wand. What types of priorities would you like to see resolved in some particular way in your county?
Absolutely. Well, I believe that is our number one. I also would want to take that wand and fix our housing crisis. So that would mean expanding the eviction protection program that we have in place. That would mean expanding our housing trust fund, and that would mean more affordable housing throughout our county. This is not just a city problem. It's not just a Beacon or Poughkeepsie problem. It's countywide. And of course, the third has to do with taxes. Let's get taxes back in people's pockets while we are still providing the best services. So that would mean, right, maybe not spending $25 million towards a stadium.
Well, there's so many things that link our counties. We talk a little bit about the river specifically, and then more generally the environment, tourism, which we've alluded to. Persons in New York City, they don't say I want to go tour Westchester. They say I want to tour the Hudson Valley. We even have a Hudson Valley Restaurant Week that's happening as we're doing this taping, and those are restaurants in your county, my county, and the other ones around us. So hopefully in the days to come, we can find some of these things as being areas of common action where we can find ways to work together. So we've been speaking with Yvette Valdés-Smith, who is the minority leader of the Dutchess County Legislature, and Barrington Atkins, who is the assistant minority leader. And we thank you both for your time and for making the trip down to White Plains, and hopefully a safe trip back up to your home areas.
Thank you so much for having us. We love being in Westchester, and we loved having this open conversation with you too.
Well, we're happy that you're here. We appreciate you watching. We'll be back for another edition very soon of Hudson Valley Conversations. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thanks for watching. Have a good week.